Okay. So thank you all for coming. My name is LunchAssist. I work with Healthy Pro, and I will be moderating today this session with Mickinzie and Jen on program integrity and compliance during the school year 21-22. Sorry, we just got. So as an introduction, your speakers are going to be Mickinzie Lopez. She's a registered dietitian, a school nutrition specialist, and one of the co-founders of LunchAssist. Since 2018, she's supported school nutrition professionals in their understanding and implementation of federal and state regulations. She has a special talent for developing tools and resources that communicate complex information clearly and effectively. Prior to her role at LunchAssist, Mickinzie provided nutritional support to teams at Stanford University, Indiana University, and for the San Francisco Giants. Jen McNeil, who will be joining us momentarily, is a former award-winning child nutrition director and co-founder of LunchAssist. She previously worked with Encinitas and Helmet Unified School Districts in California. And Jen and the LunchAssist team are dedicated to empowering school nutrition professionals to succeed through an extensive collection of innovative tools and training, resources, customized consulting, and an online community where school districts and community partners have access to all of their professional needs. Jen and her team have completed over 75 administrative reviews in 3 different states, including several remote reviews. They are on a mission to simplify school nutrition and are well worth listening to in that regard. So a few little housekeeping issues. One is that if you can keep your questions into the chat, we will be able to see them. And if it's not covered in the presentation, we will bring them up and ask at the end. So please put them in there. We won't lose them. We'll write them down. This session is also being recorded. You will be emailed access in the future once we get them all combined. You can return to the findyourpath2021.com website as well. And lastly, if you'd like to enhance your screen a little bit, under the Leave button in the main section there, if you hover, you'll see 3 dots. You'll have the ability to pin the particular screen that you're working on. So if you want to pin the presentation and make it full screen, you can do that. And you can also unpin and make it smaller. So one note, call out to Jen, you should go ahead and sign in your regular email. So with that, I will let Mickinzie get started, and I hope you all enjoy.
Thanks, Lynn. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Program Integrity and Compliance during school year 21-22. And thanks, Lynn, for that very nice introduction. And thank you to the entire Healthy Pro team for putting on this wonderful event. It's so nice of you all to take the time out of your busy day to join us here today. And I'm hoping to be joined shortly by my colleague, Jen, the co-founder of LunchAssist. And so if she pops on here, that'll be wonderful. Otherwise, I'm going to get started and start with the presentation. Along those same lines, before we dive in, we want to take a moment to express gratitude to all of you out there in the field. We are excited to be here with you today and continue to be amazed by school nutrition professionals and how they've stepped up to unprecedented challenges over the last year and a half, and those who continue to support your communities by feeding children day in and day out. We know many of you haven't taken much time for yourselves, but you've managed to create space in your schedule that we genuinely can't thank you enough. We also want to take a moment to acknowledge that with June's arrival, we celebrate Pride Month, a time that we unite with the LGBTQ+ communities to celebrate love and freedom, and also reflect on those still struggling with the liberty to be themselves. As former President Barack Obama said, when all Americans are treated equal, no matter who they are or whom they love, we are all more free. Later in today's presentation, we will share some resources on diversity, inclusion, and supporting our LGBTQ+ students and colleagues. In case you don't know about LunchAssist, our team works to support schools across the country with an aim to simplify school nutrition so you can focus on what matters most. If you're not already a part of our little tribe, then you're hereby formally invited to join LunchAssist Pro, the membership for school nutrition professionals. Our members support us in our efforts to publish the freshest content in the industry, including training videos, resources, tools, cheat sheets, and policy updates, and more. As a treat for attending today's session, we will provide each of you with several of our exclusive members-only tools and resources to supplement some of the information we are sharing today. Today, we will provide an overview of the latest policy updates for child nutrition programs, just so we're all on the same page as to the parameters in which we are operating this next year. Next, we'll discuss on the hot topics in school nutrition, the elusive program integrity plan, and we will move on to general considerations for compliance during school year 21-22, and finish off by sharing some of those exclusive members-only resources with all of you attending today, including sample policies, checklists, and more. We will be sure to leave some time at the end of the discussion and to give a chance to answer any questions you may have. That said, as we go along, feel free to pop questions or comments into the chat box. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll ask a few questions to you during our chat today. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about policy. We're all here from different areas of the country, so as I go through the policy update, I'll try to keep it general enough to be relevant for us no matter where we're located. But just keep in mind that there are little nuances state to state, and the final word on how waivers are implemented is with your state agency. Okay, so what's going on with policy? Can you believe that we're up to 97 nationwide waivers issued by the USDA? Back in April, the USDA released 12 waivers that are valid until June 30th, 2022. These waivers permit all schools to serve free meals during school year 21-22. Schools who are currently serving SFSP will need to switch over to SSO prior to their first day of school year 21-22. Still deciding on which program you will operate next year? Well, meals served under SSO are free. Meals served under NSLP are not free. So you do the math. We definitely recommend serving SSO. Speaking of math, are you worried about the lower SSO reimbursement rates? Well, USDA already thought of this and issued our favorite new waiver, number 86, which provides SFSP reimbursement rates for SSO meals. If you're in one of the handful of states that have extra state reimbursement, it's likely that the state reimbursement will be provided on top of that. Exact school year 21-22 reimbursement rates are forthcoming, but no matter where you are in the country, reimbursement will be well over $4 per meal. So party. And just who can be invited to this party? Remember that with SSO, you can operate a closed enrolled site where only your students are served meals, or you can choose to be an open site and feed enrolled students and members of the community. Some additional waivers that have been extended through June 2022 include non-congregate meal service, mealtime requirements, and parent meal pickup waivers, which allow schools to continue grab and go, home delivery, and other types of innovative meal service. Oh, and it looks like Jen's here to join us. Hi, Jen. I'll go ahead and finish up this slide, and then I'll let Jen take over from on the policy updates. So at this moment, we believe that this includes weekend meals, which are a normal part of SSO, and bulk meals for multiple days at one time. But be sure to flag this according to our sources at 2 different state agencies. USDA should be having some forthcoming guidance on weekend meals and bulk meals coming soon. If you're planning for weekend or bulk meal kits during school year 21-22, just be sure to keep an eye out for any policy updates on these topics. One way to stay up to date on these things is via our email listserv. We'll be sure to share how you can sign up for that later on in our session. And then what about snacks and suppers? Well, area eligibility is waived so that schools with an after-school program can serve NSLP snacks or CACFP supper and snacks at any approved school site. So with that, I will let Jen take over, and welcome, Jen.
Thanks, Mckinsey, for getting us started, and for Lynn helping with some technical difficulties we were having, and to all of you for being here to join us today. It's really nice to be here. So sorry, I'm a little late to the party. I will just pick up right where Mckinsey left off on some policy updates. So you've just heard a bit about some of the waivers that have been extended, and then Mckinsey, did you cover this slide on the CACFP supper snacks, or is that where I'm picking up? That's where I'm picking up. Okay, perfect. All right. So, so beyond the SSO waivers, some people do offer the Child and Adult Care Food Program at-risk after-school supper and snacks. So we wanted to make sure to give you a little update on those, as well as the NSLP snacks. So just keep in mind that these are only eligible for reimbursement during the regular school year. So you want to end these programs during the summer and then start them up again on your first day of school year 21-22. We know there has been some confusion about operating them until June 30th, even if your last day of school has already passed. That is not approved. So they're only for at-risk after school or after school snacks. So school has to be happening, even if it's virtual, but make sure you pause those over the summer, and then you can pick them back up though at the first day of your school year 21-22, and the area eligibility waivers are in place for next year so that you'll be able to offer those at any of your sites for free. Both of those programs if you'd like to, if you're an approved sponsor. Okay, so we are at a Healthy Pro conference, which means we're all pretty interested in menu planning, no? So what's up with the meal pattern waivers for school year 21-22? It's our understanding that USDA pretty much expects folks to follow the meal pattern, except for some sodium and age grade groups and a few little things. So we'll go over those. And state agencies will need to approve the use of meal pattern waivers on a case-by-case basis. So this is going to vary depending on what state you're in. Some states have been more flexible. Some states are very restrictive. So definitely, you want to check with your state agency. But technically, according to USDA, the meal components that can be waived under the new waivers include the sodium requirement, which we're hearing is going to be one that's pretty easy to get a waiver for. But again, depends on your state. The whole grain requirements, vegetable subgroups, 2 types of milk, unflavored low-fat milk, and then also the age grade groups. So the age grade groups also seems to be one that would be fairly straightforward to get a waiver for, because this helps you simplify, especially if you're serving the community. So if you have an open site and you're still having, a community pickup, to not have to navigate a whole bunch of different age grade groups according to the SSO meal pattern. And that'll be helpful for those of you who are switching from SFSP to SSO to continue just having one menu. The current SSO meal pattern goes through September 30th. So the one that we've had this whole year, that actually goes all the way up until September 30th. And then the new SSO meal pattern that I just mentioned begins on October 1st. So you'll want to check with your state agency for more information on how to apply for the new waiver if you need to use that. And then what about SFSP? Well, at the moment, the SFSP meal pattern flexibilities still end on June 30th, 2021, unless something changed this morning, because I did not check this morning. So in just a few weeks, those are ending. And there's been no extensions so far. The other SFSP flexibilities, most of them end on September 30th. But as you know, if you're a school operating SFSP, you do need to switch to SSO on your first day of school. So This also unfortunately means that any community agencies, if there's any community agencies in the house, you'll need to stop your SFSP programs by September 30th or whenever your local schools go back into session. But luckily you'll still have the opportunity to operate the CACFP at risk if you're in a community agency. So just a reminder on some of those aspects of the program. And then, like all things related to USDA meal patterns, it's never really that simple. And one more example of this is the fact that there are so many different meal pattern waivers. So there's yet a different meal pattern waiver for CACFP. So don't feel overwhelmed, just kind of flag that to know that there's a different one for CACFP. And you can see here on the screen the items that can be waived, again, with state agency approval for CACFP are whole grain requirements, crediting by the ounce equivalents, which is something that is supposed to take effect in October, but can be waived, and then unflavored low-fat milk requirements. So just a couple of things. Again, USDA pretty much expects us to try to follow our USDA meal patterns next year, unless there's a specific reason why we cannot do this. So thank goodness we have the team at Healthy Pro to support us in our menu planning efforts, right? And then one final policy update, there are a couple of new nationwide waivers that were issued at the end of May. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of these. So as outlined in waiver number 97, can't believe we're up to 97 waivers, school nutrition program administrative reviews will occur in school year 21-22. So USDA has clarified that, even if you operate SSO. The review will be modified or kind of streamlined, and will and certain sections such as meal applications and paid lunch equity are going to be waived. So if you do have a review next year, so if you have a review in school year 21-22, definitely consider joining our AR bootcamp. We have a virtual bootcamp going on, and it's just like a really easy, fun way to get up to speed with the review requirements, especially because it will be a bit different than any previous reviews that you've had. And then finally, you may have heard a little bit of buzz lately about Chinese chicken. We're pretty sure someone at USDA saw Chinese chicken salad on a school menu and got really confused. In case you're not aware, new guidance prohibits purchases of poultry imported from China. I'm not sure if anyone was actually purchasing poultry from China, but of course, our procurement procedures will need to be updated, and all vendors will need to sign a vendor certification on an annual basis. So that was a new memo that was just issued in case you missed it. And yeah, we have a few resources for those in our membership for those, and we can share some of those on the resources today as well. So just flagging that for you. And as you can see, the juggle is real. 97 waivers is definitely enough to make our heads spin, but I hope you feel like you're up to date on the policy front. And I just wanted to pause here and take a moment for all of us to think about how these policies and these policy changes have impacted our programs. And feel free to share in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. What questions do you have so far? Feel free to ask any questions, and we'll make sure to take some time at the end of our session to answer those. Okay, so before I pass it back to Mickinzie, I'll share a couple of gems that we have for you about program integrity. In case you've been living under a rock, program integrity is the new buzzword. It has been all of school year 2021. We've been hearing all about program integrity. And it doesn't appear to be a theme that is going anywhere soon. So what is program integrity anyway? Let's stop for a moment and think about the words. What comes to mind for you? Perhaps you think of honesty. Maybe you think of doing the right thing. Well, program integrity can be defined as an organized and structurally sound system that promotes efficiency and prevents the inappropriate use of federal nutrition dollars. This is a topic that has actually been around since the start of the school nutrition program, but it was more heavily emphasized in the 1990s and in the early 2000s after concerns arose that application errors were resulting in too many students receiving free meals. I did a deep dive on program integrity, and I discovered that in 2004, Congress passed a series of rules that heightened the emphasis on program integrity in school nutrition. So that's a little background for you. It's nothing new. And program integrity rules, really, they need to strike a delicate balance of ensuring that there's program access so that people have access to our meals, but also making sure that only those families or children who are eligible receive free meals. So for any program, achieving this balance is challenging. If program integrity procedures are too simple, then federal funds are going to be spent on things that are not allowable. But if procedures are too cumbersome, eligible families are not going to participate in our program if it's too much that we're asking of them. So if they're and also if they're super complicated or overly rigorous, operating costs will be increased and program integrity plans will actually cost more to implement than they save. So the cost benefit savings begins to decrease the more cumbersome your program integrity plan is. So as I hope you can tell, procedures that promote program integrity, they need to strike a delicate balance, and they are never going to be perfect or bulletproof. There's always going to be a way around the system, but it's just finding that Goldilocks spot for your program integrity plan where you feel like you're having a solid, plan that is protecting your program but is not too cumbersome. Okay, so let's talk about some practical things. Think about your operations during COVID-19. We've been hearing a lot about this, but what are some of the ways in which we're operating that could actually lead to misuse of federal funds? Or in other words, what are some of the weak spots in our program integrity? We want to think about some of the ways that we are newly operating in this last year that have brought this topic to the surface, right? So two of the big topics that come to mind are parent guardian pickup and preventing duplicate meals during curbside. Those are some of the big issues that we've been hearing a lot about. And then also a third is, as we've seen students come back to campus, more meals are being served in the classroom, but our classroom staff trained on how to accurately count and serve meals. So think about your operation and where are those weak spots that could potentially result in miscounting of meals, or meals perhaps being served twice to the same student, or maybe someone who's not eligible for the program picking up a meal. Think about those, and then those are the areas you really want to build your program integrity plan around. So when people are talking about program integrity, a lot of times the things that you see here on the screen, this is sort of the themes that we're seeing kind of rise to the surface. So in order to ensure program integrity, we all need to have policies and procedures in place that ensure meals are served to children or to parents who are taking them home to their children, and that duplicate meals are not served, and that accurate meal counts are recorded. That's kind of the meat of it. Now, I also want you to take a moment and think about your program before COVID, in that pre-COVID, pre-pandemic world. What are some of the ways you previously had ensured program integrity throughout your operation? Well, you probably did regular staff training, and you probably had some well-written policies and procedures. I know we all have those, especially with the policies and procedures around meal counting and claiming. Maybe you were in the habit of doing regular site visits and site monitoring to check that your staff were, well supported and following all of the guidelines. Earlier, we mentioned administrative reviews. You probably had your state agency reviewing you every 3 to 5 years. So program integrity, it's all around us, and it's not isolated to one single thing. Program integrity is a topic. It's a theme that's infused within many areas of the school nutrition program, from verification to financial management to record keeping. All of these topics, they have a little dash of program integrity sprinkled on top. And then, keeping that in mind, we've highlighted a few of the areas in green that we know that we've been focusing on during COVID, right? That you can think about how to support your program integrity even during the pandemic. And I know a lot of us are getting back to school, getting back to normal, but still some things may not be, fully up to speed. But these areas in green, these are going to be areas that I think during school year 21-22, you can really make sure you hone in on and ensure that you have program integrity plans and procedures and practices that are just as strong as you did before the pandemic. So one way to help you is with the detailed plan that we were speaking about. So the image on the screen is a copy of the sample program integrity plan from LunchAssist, which many of you may already have a copy of. This one is open access on our website, and we've emailed out to many people throughout the past several months. But we'll share this again with you if you don't have a copy of it today. And you can just use this as a jumping off point or as inspiration to make sure you're looking at all the different areas that we've kind of flagged from our team to make sure that schools are honing in on to ensure program integrity. Alrighty, so I am going to now hand it back to my colleague Mckinsey to run through a few more tools and reminders for staying in compliance during school year 21-22.
Thanks, Jen. Next, we're going to take a look at some of the considerations for this upcoming school year and some things that we'll want to keep in mind as we navigate the pandemic and transition back to some normal meal service. Fingers crossed. When schools closed in March of 2020, school nutrition professionals had to quickly adapt our meal service models. Prior to the pandemic, we were never responsible for meals children ate when they were away from campus. A school operating a drive-through lunchroom, that would have been crazy. So now that we're living in a new normal, most of us have multiple ways of getting food to our children, be it meals in the classroom, grab-and-go meal service, drive-through meal pickup, home delivery, bus routes, or socially distanced cafeterias. The juggle is real, and I know that you guys can all appreciate that. Despite all of these different service models and various programs for feeding children, we still have a lot of little things on our to-do lists that we need to chip away at throughout the year to maintain program compliance. And these are things that state agencies will be looking at during upcoming audits and in between audits in some cases. So on the screen, you can see a few of the topics that we want to be focusing on throughout the year, even during a pandemic. Many of those topics are covered in our 2021 Spring-Summer S&P checklist. And if you haven't seen this one or any of our famous quarterly checklists before, then you are definitely in for a treat. We put these together every few months and offer them for free to all members of the school nutrition community. If you're part of our listserv, then you already received this checklist a few weeks ago. Each of you will receive a checklist, and we hope that it'll help you stay organized as you navigate the transition from school year 2021 to school year 21-22. Since we have a limited time together today, we'll just take a few minutes to flag a couple of topics you want close attention to as you close out the school year. But be sure to reference this checklist throughout the summer as you prepare for the new upcoming school year to stay in compliance with all of the regulations. Our first reminder relates to school wellness policies and the triennial assessment, which is due this month. Every LEA participating in the National School Lunch Program and or the School Breakfast Program must develop a wellness policy if you haven't done so already. The guidelines for this wellness policy were finalized in 2016, also known as the final rule. And they include a set of federal requirements that each policy must meet to maintain compliance. For those of you guys who have gone through an audit recently or a review recently, these are things that the reviewers will definitely be looking for in your wellness policy. This slide details each of the federal requirements that must be present. And for a more comprehensive review of the wellness policy requirements, be sure to download this infographic from our blog and refer to it while assessing your own wellness policy. And if you haven't completed your triennial assessment, which is due June 30th of this month, be sure to check out our tips on the blog. We present triennial assessment worksheets, which fulfill all of the requirements for the triennial assessment. And we recently created a blog post that outlines step by step the 4 steps to complete the triennial assessment using the WellSat documents. There are 4 of them, so these are the 4 steps. You do not have to use the WellSat documents. The policy is a little open-ended as to how exactly you complete the triennial assessment, but we really like the WellSat ones just because they clearly meet all of the requirements. It's the only collection that we've found so far that really does meet all the requirements and would stand up in a review. Next next we'll be talking about professional standards. So as you know, the triennial assessment is not the only thing that needs to be completed by June 30th. The USDA requires that all S&Ps complete their professional development each year. These have not been waived due to the pandemic and are still required for school year 2021 and school year 21-22. So if you still have a few employees who need to meet their training requirements, we do have a couple of free lessons available on our website, including the federally required civil rights training in both English and Spanish, and a cultural competence training for school nutrition professionals. If you like any of these trainings, you'll love our full set of professional development lessons available to LunchAssist Pro members, which we'll circle back to at the end with more details. Another item to flag is the process for managing special diets. For most of the last year, it's been a big job for us just to keep focused on moving food to our children and families. Supply chain disruptions and difficulty in forecasting has made that task harder than ever. Just think about what was on your menu back in 2019. Now compare it to what's on your current menu. How many different food items are you serving now compared to before? As many of us know, anytime a new food is on the menu, we need to check to see what allergens it contains. Beyond changing our menus, another big change is that many of us may have gone from serving meals in the cafeteria with an electronic point of sale system to serving meals using tally sheets or clickers. If you don't use a POS, it can be a bit tricky to manage special diets. Think about how you will keep track of students with special dietary needs and ensure that staff are informed about these things. We do have a lesson for those of you guys who are pro members. We do have a lesson for frontline staff about special diets, especially in light of COVID-19. But these are just some things to think about as you prepare for the upcoming year, since we will see a continuation of tally sheets, clicker sheets, et cetera, and just a few things that affect our regular operations. Lastly, don't forget that emergency procurement is a great option if you're unable to do solicitations this year. It's a really simple process, and we just posted a blog about how to use emergency procurement, as well as a sample template you can use for your procurement bids or your contracts. So be sure to check it out. We'll include links at the end to all of these different resources. All right, so now getting on to the tools and resources. First is the program integrity plan that Jen mentioned earlier on. This is basically a plug and play. Highlighted the areas that you'll want to modify on your own and customize for your own district or education agency. Next is going to be our 2021 Spring Summer S&P checklist. And as I mentioned, this is a great tool for staying in compliance all year long, and it includes key dates or reminders of tasks to complete between now and the end of August. And pro members will also have access to relevant templates, tools, and resources that'll be especially helpful in completing the checklist. But you guys will all be receiving a copy of this. And Jen, maybe if you could put some of the links into the chat box for people to download now if they want, that would be wonderful. Thanks. Next, I know we mentioned a couple of blog posts, and we're really excited. We launched our blog this spring as a helpful tool for school nutrition professionals to reference for answers to some of the most common questions we've been receiving. And we will continue to build out the blog, but for now we have a few of the blog posts of our recent ones that we'll list here. So as we mentioned earlier, we do have a detailed post about what exactly a program integrity plan is, as well as the template available for downloading. We have the how to use emergency procurement blog post, which is a great short tutorial if you are new to emergency procurement, and it'll describe the steps you need to make sure that you set that up correctly and kind of breeze through the procurement process this year. Our next one is one that we actually are really proud to have on our website, and it's something that's especially important to our team, and that is about what is cultural competence and what does it mean for school nutrition professionals. And this is a really great opportunity to not only educate ourselves, but also our team members and staff, and to challenge our own prejudices. A huge part of being an ally is staying open-minded, listening, and committed to personal growth. And these actions send a message of love and acceptance to all different students and staff members of various backgrounds. And so those you know about, and especially those you might not know about. So anyways, remember, it takes just one person to start moving a school culture in a more inclusive direction. So if you would like to learn more about promoting a more inclusive school nutrition program, especially starting within your team, we have some great resources, including the training lesson and a blog post about cultural competence. And just as a note, our lessons are geared for all levels of the school nutrition department, including frontline staff all the way up to directors. We try and keep everything really fun, light, and easy to understand. So definitely check it out. As we mentioned earlier, we do have a post on the 8 requirements of the local school wellness policy, as well as detailed instructions on how to complete the triennial assessment, which is due the end of this month. Lastly, we'll be sure to share a template that we developed for accommodating students with special dietary needs and policy, with special dietary needs, policy, and procedure. So if you don't already have this on file, this is something you are required to have. So when providing food substitutions for students with disabilities, as you may know, the USDA requires a medical statement signed by a medical authority. And we often use a form to note these disabilities and accompany it with a policy and procedure to make sure that the staff and team understands how to manage different food and diet needs. And in honor of Pride Month, we wanted to share a few resources for supporting LGBTQ students and colleagues, especially in the school nutrition environment. Did you guys know that students who are or perceived to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning are especially vulnerable and at risk of bullying, harassment, assault, or worse? So what can we do to support these students and team members? Well, we can play our part in stopping and preventing harassment and discrimination by ensuring that our schools are safe for everybody. Consider making your mail service area a safe zone through stickers or posters on the walls. This lets students and colleagues know that you are accepting of them and are willing to challenge the anti-LGBTQ language or harassment. If anyone is still working on completing their annual professional standards requirements or is interested in diversity and inclusion trainings for yourself or your team, we highly recommend checking out the cultural competence lesson available on our blog that I mentioned a few moments ago. And on this screen are a few extra resources just to increase awareness about different types of people that are in our life and how to remain culturally competent on a daily basis and how to promote an environment of inclusion and diversity. Next, I'll talk a little bit about LunchAssist Pro. I know you've probably heard us mention it a few times. And basically, this is the membership for school nutrition professionals that we launched a little over a year ago. And there are 2 components to the Pro membership. One is a set of professional development lessons and training for you and your staff. And we have these available in English and Spanish. So the lessons we have on the slide here are a handful of the trainings that we have available now for all of our Pro members. as well as additional resources, tools, checklists, templates, etc. in the collective, and is basically like our Google Drive of all of the information and tools and resources that we've accumulated and developed, and we put them together for you guys in a really organized space to keep you on track and compliance, and they're updated regularly so that way you can quickly navigate to any area of interest and find everything you need to stay in compliance and operate successfully. Next, one of the last things we just wanted to share with you is we did recently launch our 21-22 AR Bootcamp. So for those of you who are scheduled for an administrative review this upcoming year, we definitely recommend checking out our virtual bootcamp. It's fun, it's a small group, and we go through each section of the audit together. It's self-paced, but we do have monthly gatherings and provide so many templates and tools to complete your audit as seamlessly as possible, including an amazing answer key to the oath that we've worked tirelessly on for several years. So be sure to check it out. This is also a great opportunity for those of you who might be new in your position as director and are looking to stay in compliance and learn a little bit more about what you need to do on a regular basis to stay in compliance. So if you have any questions about the AR Bootcamp, feel free to reach out to us, send us an email, or visit our website, www.lunchassist.org/AR Bootcamp. So if you like these resources, we have so many more. It is our job to provide resources and tools to assist you in simplifying your life and your job. So be sure to join our community. Step one, definitely check out our blog. We're going to keep adding to it each month and adding more and more resources and topics to keep you in the know. Second, subscribe to our newsletter. We only send out probably, I think, one newsletter a month. We definitely don't spam your inbox with too many messages, but we do send out one monthly newsletter with relevant policy updates, resources, and invites to any webinars that we are hosting. Step three, feel free to attend our LunchAssist community calls and invite your friends. If any of you have attended the community of practice calls that we hosted in partnership with the Center for Eco-Literacy, these ones are going to be similar but different. So definitely come check them out. They will be starting in September on the second Thursday of every month, starting September 9th. We also invite everyone to become a member of LunchAssist Pro for continued access to so many resources. And lastly, join the LunchAssist AR Bootcamp if you are scheduled for a review or simply want to learn more about staying in compliance. So in conclusion, we are here basically to help you succeed. And we are open to feedback and ideas about tools and resources that you all need to make your jobs and your life simpler. So with that, I think we will open it up to any questions that anyone might have or any discussion or comments, clarifications.
You can post in the chat section if you'd like to ask a question. I know one of the things that had come up previously was there was a question about on the desk reviews, what kinds of things were you seeing?
Yeah, I can take that one. We've done several desk reviews this year. So we've done a couple that were on the Seamless Summer option specifically, and then others that were where people did operate the National School Lunch Program this year. So there's definitely some differences. The main thing that is like a bit tricky to navigate is that there's different nuances depending on the reviewer, which we're probably all used to. Like every reviewer is a little bit different, but because there's no federal framework for the remote site visit, for example, some reviewers would ask for pictures of your lunchroom. Other reviewers would want to Zoom with you and have like a live video of your meal service area. We had one reviewer who sat with us for 2 hours during the meal service on Zoom. and observed, you know, the meals being taken the whole time. And then others who emailed us the day of the review and said, hey, send me pictures of your meal service today. And we may not have seen that email until after meal service, but they wanted pictures of the meals that were being. So with all of these methods, I think one of my best pieces of advice for people is to acknowledge that it's different than what you've been through before, and to make sure that you know, I guess you kind of take advantage of the review and being remotely and give yourself that space and room to respond in a way that you know is compliant. So where, like, if someone was in person at your site, you would feel like, if the reviewer is in person, you feel like that immediate need to show them a file as soon as they ask for it, or that immediate, need to respond in 2 minutes, you know, like as soon as they ask you a question, you're responding right away. With a remote review, you have a little bit more space to breathe. You're kind of more in control of the conversation, because if they email you, you know, you may not be on your email right away, and you can take time to thoroughly respond to whatever they ask of you. If they call you, maybe you were in the middle of something and you can't take that call. You can say, hey, let me get back to you. So my little line that I tell all of our people is, let me think about that and get back to you, or let me check with my team and get back to you. I'm not sure, I need to talk to another person on my team, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And take that space so that you can kind of reply in a way that is compliant. And because it's all virtual, it's in your best interest to really, you know, thoroughly edit and not to change, but to like do a good proofread of all of your stuff and really make sure that you are being thorough with all of your review documents, so that you have the chance to show your program in the best light. And, you know, that's true during any audit, but especially during the virtual audit, you know, you can kind of really take a look at everything you're uploading to the state, whether it's via email or via a digital file storage solution, which we recommend using, like a Google Drive or something like that. So those are some things that come top of mind to me. I don't know, Mckinsey, if you have anything else that has been on your radar as we've gone through some of the reviews.
I mean, I think that summed it up pretty well. If anything, communication with your reviewer is a little bit more important, just because so much of the communication is being done via email that sometimes things can get lost in translation, or you might miss an email. So always be sure to clarify with your reviewer what they're asking for, especially if it's something new that you're not used to, such as photos during a meal service. And feel free to just follow up with questions if needed to make sure that you have a really clear understanding of what they're asking for, because they're not there in person. You lose that extra bit of understanding you get by speaking with a person in front of you. So with email communications, there's just more opportunities for misunderstandings to occur. So always just take the time to clarify any questions that you have, and ask for more examples or clarification if needed.
Thanks. And I have one more question here about program integrity, about what is kind of one of the key things that you'll see over and over that undermines your program integrity, and how do you keep up?
I think the number one thing that's on my radar always, and this is before COVID, but especially now, is meal counting. So meal counting is, first of all, it's how we get federal funds. So if your meal counting is wrong and you're counting too many meals, then if you're counting meals that are unallowable and you're resulting in an overclaim, that is an overpayment of federal funds, and that is a severe fiscal finding, no matter how small it is on your review. You will always get a fiscal finding for that. So, and of course, that's one of the onus is on us to spend taxpayer dollars in an appropriate manner, right? So I think number one should be your meal counting, how you're ensuring that your meal counts are taken accurately. And trust me, we've seen lots of creative meal counting throughout the pandemic, lots of non-compliance in this area, even with people who have been in the industry for a long time and probably knew that they weren't counting meals accurately, but they just, we've had so much on our plate this year. So make sure that when you do take a look at program integrity, you're looking at how meals are being counted. And I think so many people have really stressed about like parent meal pickup. And as long as you have some procedures in place, like some signage, and maybe you have like a verbal check, like, hey, are you a parent of a child 18 and under? Are you picking up a meal for them? That's really compliant with the parent meal pickup. But if you're not counting those meals in an appropriate manner, then that can be a really big finding. So making sure that you're either doing meal counts on a tally sheet, you can use a clicker, that's a good option, or of course you can use a point of sale system to record meal counts by the actual student ID if you want to do that. But you don't need to do that. As long as you have really solid tally sheets or clicker counts, you can take those at the time of service, right? And if you're serving more than one meal at a time, so if you're serving like a breakfast and a lunch together, or maybe on Friday you're sending your students home with weekend meals, make sure you really have clear for how those meals are being accounted for. We've seen a lot of people who haven't really made that clear. They're like, oh yeah, I know that like if there's 100 meals counted on Friday, that's actually 100 breakfasts, 100 lunches, and then 100 weekend breakfasts and 100 weekend lunches. And that needs to be written down somewhere, and it needs to be very clear, because trust me, if you go out, if you have multiple sites and you go out to your different sites, if that's not very clear to the site staff, they might be counting it a different way. You might think, like if you're a program operator, you might think, oh yeah, I know how I'm gonna do this and reflect those meal counts. But if it's not very clear to frontline staff, then it has to be clear to everyone on the team who is working with meal counts. So get your meal count straight, and then everything else will fall into line. I think that's my best piece of advice there.
Just add on to that too, kind of building off of what you're saying, you really want your paper trail to be super clear. So one of the things that we've seen as we've helped schools prepare for their reviews is, like Jen said, they'll look at their meal count sheets and kind of know how it's supposed to work. But as someone who's looking at it, who's not familiar with the day-to-day service, it might look kind of confusing. So on both the production records and either the clicker or tally sheets, just clarifying a few things. So for example, if you're doing bulk meals, if let's say you're doing a tally sheet, you could say 1 tally equals 7 breakfasts plus 7 lunches. That makes it really clear to whoever's looking at the sheet, whether it be a staff member, a reviewer, a manager, that 1 tally sheet is for 1 bulk kit, that it's not a tally for every single lunch given out. It's for 1 kit. So 1 tally equals 7 lunches plus 7 breakfasts, or whatever scenario you have. If you're doing like a weekend meal kit, it could be that 1 tally equals 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Whatever it might be, you just want it to be really clear and have that same message on the production record as well as on the tally sheet or clicker count sheet. That's something that we've had several schools, we've had them go back and add that in preparation for their reviews that were taking place this spring, because otherwise it's very confusing and really easy to have lots of errors. So that's one thing we definitely recommend adding to your documentation.
Yeah, and it's really important because one thing that we are responsible for in our program is record keeping. And this is throughout all the different program topics, especially like procurement, meal counts, menu planning. A lot of us, we know what's going on in our program, but if we don't have accurate records, if we don't have it written down, then we don't really have evidence of that. So think about how, if someone had no knowledge about your program, if they just looked at your paper trail, is it clear? and maybe hand it to someone in your department who wouldn't know and see if they can figure it out. And that'll be a good indicator of if your paper trail is clear and fully documented and compliant.
Thank you. Those are great suggestions. And as they have shared, LunchAssist has numerous reference materials that are so helpful, quick and easy to read, and kind of gets you through that muddy water into something that's a little bit more clear and easy to follow. So I want to thank you both, Mickinzie and Jen, for your presentation today, for all of the great resources that you've shared. Their information will also be available on the download when we finish and conclude with the program. The resource page will be accessible through there too. So thank you very much. We really enjoyed it, and good luck everybody in getting ready for next year.
Thanks, Lynn, and thanks all of you for being here today. And yeah, feel free to stay in touch, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.